I'm Adam, 31, and I've always been the invisible one in my family. Not the black sheep exactly, just the one nobody looked at twice. I wasn't the golden child, that's my older brother, Mike, nor the dramatic one with constant crises, my younger sister, Emily. I was the dependable one, the quiet one, the one who shows up on time, pays his part, and somehow ends up footing the rest when others forget their wallets. The one who gives, never asks, and gets brushed off when he does. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when family meant something to me. But over the years, that meaning eroded, replaced by backhanded compliments, whispered mockery, and the occasional guilt-tripped favor that never got repaid. I learned to let things slide, small insults here, being left out of group text there. Until one dinner changed everything. It started with a group message from my mom. She was excited, genuinely, this time. "Let's do something big for Grandma's birthday," she said. "A fancy dinner. Just close family. My treat." I raised an eyebrow at "my treat" because I'd seen her version of that before. It usually meant she books it, then conveniently forgets her wallet. Still, I agreed. I didn't want to make waves. Grandma had always been kind to me, the only one who used to send handwritten birthday cards and call just to check in. So yeah, I was in. I even offered to cover the flowers and get there early to help set up. Classic me. The restaurant was this upscale Italian place downtown. Cloth napkins, string lights on the patio, the kind where the menu doesn't list prices, just market value. When I got there, I was one of the first to arrive, flowers in hand. I gave them to the hostess with a note for Grandma and asked if the table was ready. She smiled and led me toward the back, and that's when I saw it. There were two large tables, long, elegant, decorated with candles and place cards. And then, a smaller, round table shoved near the service hallway, right next to the swinging door leading into the kitchen. A wobbly chair sat on one side, with a folded napkin and a chipped water glass. The place card just said, "Adam." I blinked. "Excuse me," I asked the hostess, trying to keep my voice even. "Is there a mistake? I thought I was with the main group." She glanced at the list and then back at the card. "This is what your party requested," she said, smiling a little too politely before walking away. I stood there, dumbfounded, until I saw them arrive. My brother Mike led the way, loud as ever in his designer jacket, with his wife hanging off his arm. My mom followed, all made up and smiling like it was prom night. My sister trailed behind, already half glued to her phone. They were laughing, loud and carefree, moving toward the long tables like royalty entering a court. Mike spotted me first. His smirk widened. "Look who got here early," he said, like I was the doorman. I nodded slowly. "Hey, just wondering, why am I sitting by the kitchen?" He shrugged, glancing at the sad little table like it was a stray dog on the sidewalk. "This table's for actual family," he said, and I swear the way he said it didn't even register as cruel to him. Like it was just factual, not mean, just obvious. My aunt, who had just arrived and was already halfway through a martini, laughed out loud. "Oh, come on, Adam. You always were the quiet one. You don't mind, right?" My mom didn't even make eye contact. She just smoothed her skirt and walked past me, whispering, "Don't make a scene, honey." And just like that, I was dismissed. They all sat, filled their glasses, called out for the waiter, and carried on like I wasn't there. I stood frozen for a second. Then, like a fool, I walked to that sad little table and sat down. The chair wobbled just enough to be annoying. The air smelled like garlic and dish soap. Every now and then, a waiter would push the kitchen door open and give me that awkward half-smile that screamed, "Yikes, buddy." "Sorry." I tried to keep my head down, focused on the bread basket they brought over. Nobody talked to me. No one even glanced my way. They toasted, took selfies, laughed. Grandma hadn't even shown up yet, but they were already celebrating like she was an afterthought. I don't know what stung more, my brother's words, my mom's silence, or the way I accepted it without a fight. The waiter came over midway through with a nervous expression. "Excuse me," he said, "just confirming. Are you covering the check tonight?" That's what the organizer indicated. I stared at him. My mouth opened, then shut. Of course I was. Because while my mom loved to say my treat, what she really meant was Adam will cover it eventually. It happened during birthdays, during holidays, even at Mike's engagement dinner. Somehow the bill always ended up with me, and I let it. Over and over, because I thought that's what family did. But not this time. I looked across the room at my brother, who was holding court like a king, glass raised, laughing loudly at some joke. My mom was leaning in to whisper something to my aunt, probably about how sensitive I'd become lately. My sister didn't even glance up from her phone. That's when something clicked. I didn't belong here, not because I wasn't family, but because I was the only one acting like it meant anything. I picked up my napkin slowly, folded it in half, and placed it on the table. Then I stood, walked past the swinging door one last time, and made my way toward the front. The waiter rushed to follow. "Sir, the bill." I turned and pointed back toward the long table. My voice was calm, measured, charged the ones with the real seats. Then I walked out, smooth, silent. But I wasn't 5 steps outside before I heard the commotion, my brother's voice rising, my mom's panic setting in, and someone yelling, "Wait, what?" That's when the story really began. I didn't rush. There was something beautifully cathartic about walking out of that restaurant at a calm, deliberate pace. No yelling, no slammed doors. Just the sound of my own shoes on the marble floor and the stunned silence I left in my wake. Outside, the night was crisp, the air thick with the scent of rain on pavement. I slipped into my car and just sat there for a minute, watching the front doors through the windshield. It took less than 30 seconds before the storm hit, figuratively, anyway. Mike burst out first, face flushed red, waving his arms like I owed him an explanation. "Adam," he shouted, scanning the sidewalk, finally locking eyes with me. "What is wrong with you?" I didn't move, didn't roll the window down, just stared at him through the glass like I was looking at a stranger. He jogged up, tapped the window hard, then harder. "You're seriously gonna stick us with this? It's nearly $4,000. I rolled it down just enough for my voice to slip through. "I didn't order anything. Didn't sit with you. Barely spoke to anyone. But I was still expected to pay? That's not family, Mike. That's freeloading." He opened his mouth to argue, but then Mom appeared behind him, visibly panicked. "Adam," she said, voice too sweet to be sincere. "Can we talk? Please?" "Not here." I leaned back slightly and looked between the two of them. "Oh, now you want to talk." Not when I was put next to the trash cans like the family dog. Not when my seat was practically in the kitchen. But now that the check's on the table and no one brought a wallet, now you want to talk. Mike huffed. "Stop being dramatic." That did it. I rolled the window all the way down, looked him square in the eye, and said, "You pointed to that chair and said it was for actual family. So let actual family handle the bill." Then I rolled it up and drove off. I didn't go straight home. My hands were shaking with adrenaline, my heart pounding, but underneath all that, relief, and a growing, dangerous kind of clarity. For years, I'd let myself be the quiet one, the one who paid without complaint, the one who didn't ask for a seat at the table because he was too afraid of seeming ungrateful. But tonight they reminded me that being family meant nothing when the love, respect, and decency weren't mutual. I parked by the river, let the windows down, and watched the water shimmer under the city lights. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, a dozen times. Mom texted, "Adam, please. Let's not do this here." Mike texted, "You're being insane. Grow up." Emily texted, "Are you seriously ghosting us over a seat? You always were too sensitive." Then came Grandma's name on the screen. I hesitated. She wasn't even at the dinner yet. She was supposed to arrive later, since Mike and Mom wanted to set the mood first. But she'd probably heard the chaos by now. I answered, "Sweetheart." Her voice was soft, laced with concern. "What happened?" "Your mother is having a meltdown." I exhaled. "Grandma, where are you?" "At the entrance." "I just got here." I paused. "Did they even tell you I was coming?" She hesitated. "They told me it was a small dinner. Said you might not be able to make it." I was surprised. "I know how much you care about these things." My throat tightened. "I did come," I said. "I was there. Sat by the kitchen. Alone. I left when they tried to hand me the bill for everything." There was a long silence. "Tell me where you are," she said finally. 10 minutes later, she climbed into the passenger seat of my car, umbrella folded, a disapproving look set deep into the lines of her face. "I told your mother if she wanted to act like I was dead already, then she could handle the dinner without me." And then I walked out. I blinked. "Wait, what?" She pulled off her gloves, adjusted her glasses. "You're not the first one they've done this to, Adam. They've treated your kindness like a blank check for years. Your father used to say the same thing about your mom. She always remembers the price tag, but never the person who paid it." I stared at her. "Why didn't you say anything before? I thought I'd raised her better. And I thought you'd say something yourself eventually." I looked out at the water again, The night suddenly a little less cold. I guess I finally did. She smiled faintly. Good. We ended up grabbing takeout and sitting on a park bench with 2 paper bags and a bottle of water between us. And for the first time in years, I had dinner with someone who actually wanted me there. But the fallout from the restaurant? Oh, that was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up to chaos in the family group chat. Apparently, no one brought enough cards to cover the bill. Mike's card had a limit. Emily's was already overdrawn. Mom's treat had bounced halfway through processing. They had to split the cost 3 ways, and the restaurant didn't let them leave until it was paid in full. Mike texted, "This is your fault." Emily texted, "You humiliated us." Mom texted, "You're being cruel." But the worst one? A text from my mom that simply read, "I told your grandma this would happen. You've always been vindictive when you don't get attention." That's when I realized I wasn't done. They wanted to draw the line in the sand. Fine. I had receipts. Literal ones. I'd been covering utilities on my mom's house for years. I helped Mike out of a car lease he couldn't afford last summer. I paid for Emily's last-minute emergency tuition when her loans didn't come through on time. I'd kept the receipts. I'd kept everything. And if they wanted to make me out as the villain, well, I was about to show them what being left out really looked like. I didn't respond to the messages. Not a single one. Not even when Mike tried calling me 6 times in a row, or when my mom left a 3-minute voicemail crying about how this family is falling apart. I wasn't interested in giving them the satisfaction of a reply. Not yet. They weren't reaching out because they cared. They were reaching out because the consequences finally reached them. By that afternoon, the family group chat, usually silent unless someone wanted something, turned into a full-on circus. My sister sent a meme about being the only sane one. Like that excused the fact that she laughed at me from across the table while I sat next to the kitchen. Mike, unsurprisingly, tried to twist the narrative, claiming he had planned to pay the bill, but the restaurant made a mistake. I couldn't help but laugh at that one. Mike hasn't paid for anything unless someone else was watching. But it was Mom's message that really sealed it for me. I don't know when you became so cold. Maybe that girl who left you really did a number on you. We used to be able to count on you. This just isn't who you are. The girl she was talking about? My ex, Julia, who, ironically, had pointed out the same thing Grandma had, that I gave and gave, but never stood up for myself, that I mistook quiet loyalty for strength, that I mistook family obligation for love. Mom weaponized that heartbreak like it was a trump card, so I made a quiet little list. On one side, I wrote down every financial favor I had extended to each of them in the past 3 years. Rent payments, phone bills, last-minute, emergency Venmo requests. I had emails, text receipts, statements, some of them laughably specific, like the $147 I gave Emily so she could cover the Uber from her weekend trip because she forgot her purse. I'd forgotten how much I had done for them until I saw it all on paper. On the other side of the list, I wrote down every insult, every dismissal, every moment they made it clear that I wasn't truly part of the inner circle, the actual family. Then I called my bank. First was the automatic monthly transfer that went to my mom's mortgage account, cut off. Then the co-signed auto loan Mike begged me for last year. I called and had my name removed. He'd have to refinance it alone now or the interest rate would spike. I also pulled the emergency card I'd let Emily keep just in case. She'd been using it regularly for food deliveries and subscription boxes. Canceled. Immediately. I sent no explanation. Just shut the tap off, one connection at a time. It was like I was slowly unplugging the power from their little shared generator, and none of them realized they were in the dark until the lights started flickering. The next 48 hours were pure silence. No texts, no calls. I think they were hoping I'd cool off, crawl back, apologize for making a scene. But I had no intention of crawling anymore. That Friday, I got an email from the family's accountant. Yes, their accountant. I'd recommended him years ago when Mom wanted someone to help her manage her retirement funds. He said he got a call from her asking why the mortgage account bounced. He sounded cautious. "Adam, is everything okay?" I told him I wouldn't be handling any family-related accounts anymore. I made it sound professional, clean. He didn't pry, just paused, then said quietly, "Understood." But it was what came after that really caught me off guard. Grandma called. Not to guilt me, not to fix anything, just to talk. "I heard what you did," she said. I held my breath. And she chuckled softly. "About time." I blinked. "Wait, you're not mad?" "Oh, sweetheart," she said, her voice warm but tired. Do you think I didn't notice how they've treated you over the years? You think I don't know what that dinner was really about? I stayed quiet. They wanted to show off. Pretend they were the ones holding everything together. You were never meant to be the guest of honor, Adam. You were the prop. The one who funds the show but never gets a line. That hit harder than I expected. She continued. They'll be angry. They'll say you've changed. But I hope you have. Because people who only love you when you're useful don't really love you at all. We talked for nearly an hour. It was the most honest conversation I'd had with any family member in years. She didn't try to make excuses for them. She didn't suggest I let it go. She just told me she was proud. The following Monday, the real storm began. Mike showed up at my apartment. He knocked like he was the victim in all this. Loud, frantic, entitled. I didn't answer. He pounded harder. Come on, man. We need to talk. I stayed seated on the couch, TV on mute. Eventually, I heard him yell something about me ruining everything, and then storm off. Probably because the car payment was due, and he couldn't afford it without my credit bolstering the loan. The next day, Emily sent a text that actually made me laugh. You made your point. Can you at least turn the card back on until my next paycheck? This is getting ridiculous. I didn't reply. Then came Mom's call. I ignored it. So she sent a voice message. Her tone was different this time. Less angry, more calculated. Adam, I understand you're hurt, but we need to find a way forward. We're still family. Your grandmother is very upset, and I know she'd want us to work this out. Maybe we can meet for dinner? My treat. There it was again. My treat. Like the past hadn't happened. Like the kitchen chair didn't exist. Like my role as the walking ATM would be reinstated if we just slapped a family dinner over the wound and smiled through dessert. She didn't know what I knew. She didn't know I had screenshots of the group chat, messages between her, Mike, and Emily talking about keeping Adam on the edge so he doesn't get cocky. She didn't know I saw the email where she referred to me as financially reliable, but emotionally delicate. She didn't know Grandma had quietly forwarded them to me when she saw how they talked behind my back. And she didn't know I had a plan. Because dinner wouldn't fix this. But exposing the truth? That might. I waited a week before responding to my mom's dinner invitation. It wasn't out of hesitation. I wanted her to stew in it. To twist in the uncertainty. I knew my silence would drive her up the wall. That was her weakness. Not knowing where she stood. Not being able to control the narrative. She'd spent years playing the role of loving matriarch. Only to turn cold behind closed doors the second the cameras were off. I wasn't going to play that part anymore. I texted her 3 words. Dinner sounds good. We settled on a quiet place uptown, the kind she liked. Dim lighting, leather booths, low jazz in the background. Neutral ground, she called it. I dressed sharp. Nothing flashy, but sharp. Crisp blazer, clean shave, watch that glinted under the right light. Not for her, for me. Because this was the first time I wasn't showing up as the apologetic son, or the scapegoat brother, or the silent provider. I was showing up as someone who finally understood his worth. She was already there when I arrived. Sitting at a booth in the corner, posture perfect, wine glass half full. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. It never did. Adam, she said, rising slightly. You look well. So do you, I said, sliding into the booth. Still using guilt as a moisturizer? Her smile flickered. I see we're starting with sarcasm. I'm just following your lead. She sighed. Look, I didn't ask you here to argue. You didn't ask me here at all. You assumed I'd come when you snapped your fingers. But go on. She took a sip of wine, setting it down with practiced grace. This thing between us, it's gotten out of hand. We're family. You can't just cut everyone off like that. Your brother, your sister, they're upset. You humiliated them. I nodded slowly. Yeah, that tends to happen when people get hit with a $4,000 bill they assumed someone else would cover. It wasn't like that, she said quickly. Really? Because I sat next to a trash can while Mike toasted with champagne. You didn't even look at me that night. No one did, until the bill showed up. Adam, no. You wanted to talk? We're talking. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. I told them it was a mistake. I never meant for you to feel excluded. I reached into my blazer pocket and pulled out a folded stack of printed screenshots. I slid them across the table. Her face paled slightly. Go ahead, I said. Read them. I highlighted the good parts. She hesitated, but curiosity got the better of her. She scanned the first page. Mike, just make sure Adam's not too comfortable. If we don't keep him humble, he starts asking questions. Emily, LOL, just put him near the bathroom again. Mom, He doesn't need the spotlight. He gets weird when he feels important. Her face crumbled as she read. Page after page. Evidence she couldn't deny. Words she typed. Laughs she shared. All behind my back. I never, she started, but the protest died in her throat. I know exactly what you never did, I said quietly. You never stood up for me. Not when Mike mocked me in front of people. Not when Emily used me like a bank. And not when you let them treat me like an afterthought for a decade. You don't understand, she said, voice thinner now. Your brother, he's always needed more help. And your sister needed help. I laughed. I was the help. She looked down, eyes darting over the pages like maybe they'd rewrite themselves if she stared hard enough. You don't have to like me, I said, but you will respect me. And respecting me starts with acknowledging I don't owe you anything. There was silence between us. Heavy, aching silence. I let it sit. Then I pulled out the last envelope. This one wasn't a screenshot. It was a legal document. I slid it to her gently. What's this? She asked. A formal release. I've removed myself from any joint accounts. I've closed the emergency card. I've notified the auto loan company that Mike needs to refinance without my name. Emily's tuition, no longer my responsibility. And that savings account I opened under your name to help with your retirement? I withdrew every cent. It's mine again. Her mouth parted. You what? I'm done funding a family that sees me as a wallet with legs. Her eyes welled with tears. How can you say that? After everything we've been through. I looked her dead in the eyes. Because everything we've been through was me giving and you taking. Me offering grace and you mistaking it for weakness. Me sitting by the trash while you dined like royalty. She blinked rapidly, wiping at her cheeks. I stood up, laying a crisp $100 bill on the table. For your wine, I said. My treat. But it's the last one. And I walked out. The fallout over the next few weeks was nuclear. Mike called me every name in the book. Claimed I'd betrayed the family. Tried threatening legal action over the car. Until he realized the car wasn't even in his name. It was registered to my LLC. He'd have to pay me or return it. He chose the latter. I had it towed from his driveway on a Tuesday morning. The neighbors watched. Emily begged. She tried crying, apologizing. I didn't respond. When her school called about the canceled payment plan, I simply said she'd have to arrange a new one. I was no longer listed as financial guarantor. Mom sent one last message. I hope this makes you feel powerful. Just remember, family's what you come home to. I didn't reply, because she was wrong. Family isn't what you come home to. It's who wants you home. And I didn't need a group of emotionally bankrupt leeches pretending to love me for what I could give. I kept in touch with Grandma. We started doing dinner once a week, real dinners. Equal footing, mutual respect. She gave me old photo albums, told me stories I'd never heard, laughed like someone who didn't have to play favorites anymore. And me? I started building something of my own. Not a new family, not yet, but a new foundation. One built on boundaries, self-respect, and the understanding that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. The chair next to the trash can? It was a gift. It showed me exactly where I stood. And more importantly, where I never had to sit again. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.